So in this video lecture, we'll be starting with the topic of dynamics. Now dynamics is bifurcated into two parts. First is kinematics and second is kinetics. I had told you in the beginning of engineering mechanics that kinematics, it deals with motion without referring to the cause, that is the cause of the motion. So in kinematics, we'll be studying linear motion and curvilinear motion. In curvilinear motion, we'll be studying rectangular components of curvilinear motion. Basically, we'll be specifying curvilinear motion in terms of rectangular components and in terms of normal and tangential components and in terms of cylindrical components. Okay. Kinetics, on the other hand, it deals with motion referring to the forces that has caused the motion. So in this, we'll be learning D'Alembert's principle, work energy equation and impulse momentum equations. Right. So let us start with kinematics first. First, we'll understand certain important definitions. So these are the definitions that you already know. Velocity is nothing but it is derivative of displacement. So it is ds by dt, where s is your displacement. Okay, s is the displacement. It can be a function of time as well. Acceleration A is dv by dt, or in terms of displacement, it is the double derivative of the displacement. So d2s by dt square, or it can also be written, if your velocity is described in terms of displacement, then it can also be written as v dv by ds. So this formula has come from this formula itself, that is dv by dt. If I multiply and if I divide by ds, so this ds by dt is nothing but your v, right? So it is v into dv by ds. Then these equations of motion, v is equal to u plus at. So you see why kinetics is without referring to the cause of the motion. You see that in these equations there is no mention of force anywhere, right? Everything is in terms of velocity, acceleration and time. There is no mention of force, but still it is defining a motion. So s is ut plus half at square, this also you all be knowing, and v square minus u square is equal to 2as. So these are three important equations of motion that we'll be using for our numericals. Further, what we'll be learning in this is various types of graphs. So first is acceleration versus time. Okay, so on y-axis we have acceleration, on x-axis we have time. Let us say, for example, this graph is something like this. Okay, just an example, arbitrary example. Now, I want to construct a velocity time graph using my acceleration time graph. So what we have is, see, when we differentiate an equation, the degree of the equation is reduced by 1. For example, d by dx of 3x square, this would become 6x, right? So the degree reduced to 1, from 2 it became 1, right? On the same hand, if I want to integrate 3x square, what will be? It will be 3x cubed by 3, right? So the degree of equation, it increases by 1. So when we integrate the degree of equation, it is increased by 1. So how we can use this information to construct AT and VT graph? Let us see. Now from displacement, if I want to go to velocity, I have to differentiate. Then from velocity, if I want to go to acceleration, again I have to differentiate. So what is basically happening is, the degree of curve is reducing progressively. From displacement to velocity, the degree reduces by 1. From velocity to acceleration, it reduces again by 1, right? So we differentiate to go in this manner. And if I want to go from A to V to S, like from acceleration I want to go to velocity, I will have to integrate. From velocity, if I want to go to displacement, I will again have to integrate. So now the degree of equation is increasing by 1, right? So here I have written degree of curve increases and degree of curve decreases. What is the degree of curve? So these lines, we can represent them as curve. So this is a straight line or a constant line. This can be represented as a curve of degree 0. Right? This is a curve of degree 0. This can be represented as curve of degree 1. This is also curve of degree 1 because its equation will be mx plus c, y is equal to mx plus c. So x has a degree of 1. Whereas for this, the equation will be y is equal to some constant. Right? So there is x equals to 0. So now this curve of degree 1 will be, if here it was a 0 degree, here it is 1, it means it's a sloping line. It can be either sloping upwards or sloping downwards depending on what value of velocity you get at this point and what velocity value is at the start point. So depending on that, this point can be either upper point or it can be either a lower point, where in this case the line will go downwards. Okay, but the main important thing that you need to understand here is that it increases by 1. Now coming to the second one, it is a curve of degree 1. Curve of degree 1, when it comes to velocity, it will become curve of degree 2. Curve of degree 2 is nothing but a parabola. Y equals to mx square, a parabola, right? So it is a curve of degree 2 parabola. Now parabola is, it can either be drawn as an outward parabola or it can be drawn as an inward parabola. So how to understand which one to draw? Because I could have also drawn it like this, right? And if this value is down, for example in this case, I could have drawn it, means if this final value of velocity is less than this value, then the curve would be something like this, or it could have also been like this, an outward parabola. But how to decide that? So to understand whether it is an outward parabola or an inward parabola, we need to understand the relation between them. So A is equal to dv by dt. What this means is that slope of velocity time diagram is equal to acceleration at that point. So the slope of velocity time diagram, what is the slope here? For slope, what we do, we draw a tangent, right? And here also I'll draw a tangent. Okay, so this slope is equal to the acceleration value at those points. So here this slope is equal to this value, this slope is equal to this value. Okay, now when I say a flat slope, that is, if slope is equal to 0, it means it's a flat slope. If slope is equal to some value, let's say 90 or any other value, if slope has a positive value, it means that it's not a flat slope but it has some value there, right? So what I can say here is that greater this value, greater will be the inclination of my slope, right? Greater this value of slope, greater is the inclination of the slope. Correct? So same way here, we will have to check which of these two values are greater, whether this value is greater or this value is greater. Okay. Now numerically you may not check which value is greater. What I am saying is that, for example, if this is the baseline and this value is 0 and this value is -5, so 0 will not be greater than -5. See this minus negative sign is what we have given to it. We will only check the magnitude. We won't check what sign it carries. Okay, what we will be checking is only the magnitude. So if this is 0 and this is 5, then this is a greater value and this is not a greater value. This is a lesser value. Okay, so that is why I am saying that we only will be checking the magnitudes at these 2 points. So now in this diagram, everything is above the positive axis. So this is a greater value. Let me say this is A1 and this is A2. A1 is greater than A2. What this indirectly means is that the slope at this point will be greater than slope at this point. So the slope at this point will be like this and the slope at this point will be like this, and there is only one way to join them, which is by outward parabola. Okay. Now let us consider the other case where let's say this curve was something like this. I mean, here it was something like this. This is A1, this is A2. Now A1 is less than A2. What it means is that the slope at this point is less than the slope at the other point. Correct? So at this point I will draw a slope of lesser value, and here I will draw a slope of greater value. And then there is only one way of joining them, that is by using an invert parabola. So I hope you all are understanding this. It is a very simple concept. Just by using this relation we can understand how the curve is going to be. In fact, you all can use this concept even for drawing the shear force and bending moment diagrams, because you might be knowing the relation between shear force and bending moment. Shear force is equal to d by dx of bending moment. So shear force is dm by dx, where x is the length, basically x is along the length and m is the moment. So slope of the bending moment is nothing but your shear force value. So if I want to draw my bending moment diagram between 2 points, I will have to check the shear force between those 2 points, and then I can appropriately plot the slopes, and then I can join the curve, whether it is an outward parabola or invert parabola. Okay, coming on to our topic. Yeah, then again here you can see there is a curve. So again I will have to plot my parabola for this. This is a curve 1, so curve 2 will be a parabola. Here this is, let's say, A1, this is A2. We can see that A1 is less than A2, right? So at this point the slope will be lesser than the other point. So at this point, let us say the slope is okay. So for example, now the other value of acceleration I know is at this point. Okay, the other value of acceleration is here. I want to join between these two. So how to join? A1 is less than A2. So here there will be a comparatively flatter slope. Here there will be comparatively steeper slope. So there is only one way to join them, that is using a invert parabola like this. Okay. So it's an invert parabola here. Same way, here what we can say is, if there is this point which I got acceleration at time equals to something as some value, right? Now I want to join these two. So A1 is less than A2, it means there is a flatter slope here and there is a steeper slope here. There is only one way how I can join them, that is using an outward parabola. Outwards parabola. Okay, so this is the concept. Then coming on to ST diagram, which is your displacement time diagram. Here we have curve 1. So when this goes to your ST diagram, it will become curve 2, which is a parabola. And then we have curve 2 here, which when it goes to ST diagram, it will become curve 3, which is y equals to mx cube. This is called as a cubic curve. Okay, it's called as a cubic curve. And again that will also have the same concept, v is equal to ds by dt. So the slope of your s by t diagram is equal to the velocity values at those points. So here you can see, let's say this is v1 and this is v2, and I want to plot between these 2 points. Okay, I want to plot between these 2 points. So v1 is less than v2, obviously. So what we can do is, there will be a flatter slope here, there will be a steeper slope here. So there is only one way how I can join them, that is using an invert parabola. So it's an invert parabola, that is of curve 2. Then okay, let us say here we have the another point. So again we can use the same concept, v2, and let's say this is v3. So v2 is less than v3. So there will be a flatter slope. this slope has to be same as what you have drawn for the previous curve, okay, because there has to be continuity of the curve, and here we'll be having a little bit steeper value. So there is again only one way how we can join them, that is using an invert parabola. And finally, if this is the point, then again by going the same concept you can find how to join them. Whether it is I'm sorry, this is not a parabola but it's a cubic, so it is invert cubic line, what we can say. I think I by mistakenly said it's an invert parabola. It's an invert cubic line, and this is a outward cubic curve. Okay. Now, few more important things about these curves. Slope of acceleration time curve will give you jerk, right? Because jerk is nothing but dA by dt, the derivative of your slope, or it is the third derivative of your displacement. Area under AT curve gives you velocity. Why? Because dV by dt is equal to A, so dV is equal to A into dt. I can integrate on both sides, so integration of area time curve is going to give you velocity. Again, integration of area time curve is going to give you velocity, right? So if I find area under this much point, I'll be getting the velocity between these 2 points, right? Slope of velocity time curve gives acceleration at that instant. So we already know A is equal to dV by dt. Area under VT curve gives displacement between those 2 points. So we know that ds by dt is equal to V, so ds is equal to V dt. If I integrate on both sides, integration of ds is equal to integration V dot dt. So integration of velocity time curve will give you displacement. So the area under this curve, this is nothing but the integration of VT curve, right? Area under this curve is going to give me displacement between these 2 points. Okay, the difference in displacement between these 2 points. Finally, the slope of displacement time curve will give you velocity at that instant. So if I take slope of my ST curve, it will give me this slope value will be basically the velocity, as V is equal to ds by dt. Alright, so now let us solve certain numericals based on what we have learned. So what is given is a train covers a distance of 1.6 kilometers between 2 stations A and B in 2 minutes, starting from rest. Okay, so this is also an important statement. In the first minute of its motion, it accelerates uniformly, and in the last 30 seconds, it retards uniformly and comes to rest. It moves with a uniform velocity during the rest of the period. Find its acceleration in the first minute, its retardation in the last 30 seconds, and constant velocity reached by the train. So this numerical can be very easily solved if we draw the displacement time curve or velocity time curve basically. So let us draw the velocity time curve. It will be much easier for us to solve this numerical. So on the x-axis we have time, on the y-axis we have velocity. Okay, so now see what is given to us is the distance between 2 stations is given. In the first minute of its motion, it accelerates uniformly. So if it is accelerating uniformly in the first minute of its motion, it means that its velocity is increasing, correct? Its velocity increases. So let's say this is the first minute. Okay, this is the first minute of its motion. Time is 1 minute here. Then what it is saying is that, and it retards uniformly for the last 30 seconds and it comes to rest, and in between its velocity is uniform. So further, let me draw 30 seconds intervals. So this is 30 seconds, this is 30 seconds. Let me write this as 60 seconds, 60, 30, 30, right? So in between its velocity remains the same, and then it retards uniformly and it comes to rest. It means its velocity becomes 0, and after retarding it becomes 0 here, right? So this is your velocity time graph. So how this will be useful to us, let us see. Now 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. At this point we know it is starting from rest. So what I can say is that u1 is equal to 0. Okay. When it reaches here, let us see that it has a velocity of v1. Okay. And in between whatever distance it has covered, let us say that distance is s1. Now if I want to apply my equation of motion as s is equal to ut plus half at square, I can apply. Okay, so I will divide this distance as s1, s2 and s3, and 3 times I will be applying the same equation. Alright, now this v1, for the second time when I apply that equation, this v1 is equal to u1, u2 basically. So u2 is equal to your v1, and then when it reaches here, let's say it becomes v2, and then again if I want to apply the equation, u3 will be equal to v2, and finally when it reaches here, v3 is equal to 0, because final velocity here is 0, right? And what we know from this graph is, if this is v1, this is v2, v1 is equal to v2, right? This is v3 here, which is 0, and u1 is 0, which we already know, right? Further, what we understand is that the total distance between them is given. So s is equal to s1 plus s2 plus s3, which is equal to 1600 meters. I'll convert it into meters, because everything I'll be writing in meters and seconds. And the distance between them, t is equal to t1 plus t2 plus t3. The distance between them is covered in 2 minutes. So 2 minutes is 120 seconds. So this is all the information that we know from this particular numerical. Let us see how we can find now. Applying equations of motion, S1 is u1 t1 plus half at1 square. Let me write it as a1, half a1 t1 square. What all things we know here? u1 we know it is 0, so this term will go. t1 we know it is 60, right? t1 is 60. a1, what I can do, a1 I can find in terms of v1. So v is equal to u plus at. This is one equation that we have, v is equal to u plus at. So v1 is equal to u1 plus a1 t1. u1 is anyway 0. So a1 will be equals to v1 upon 60, because t1 is 60 seconds, right? So s1 I get as half into v1 by 60 into 60 square, which is equal to s1 I will be getting as 30 times v1. Okay, one value I got. Let us say I apply the equation of motion again. So S2 is equal to U2 T2 plus half A2 T2 square. U2 is equal to V1. So V1 into T2 is, we know, 30 plus half A2. Now for A2 what we can do, we can again apply the same thing. V2 is equal to U2 plus A2 T2 So V2 is equal to U2, we know it is V1 plus A2 into 30. V2 again we know it is equal to V1, right? So this will be V1 equals to V1 plus A2 into 30. So what you get here, A2 is equal to 0, which is evident from this diagram, right? Because there is no increase of velocity between V1 and V2, right? So acceleration obviously has to be equal to 0 between these 2 points. So this entire term gets cancelled, and what you are left with is S2 is equal to 30 times V1. This is what you got again, 30 V1, right? Now S3 is equal to U3 T3 plus half A3 T3 square. S3 is equal to U3. What is U3? U3 is equal to V2, and V2 is further equal to V1. So what we can say, U3 is equal to V1. So I'll write the same thing. V1 into T3 was 30 seconds, because this time that was in between was 30 seconds, plus half into A3. Now A3 we can again find V3 is equal to U3 plus A3 T3. V3 is 0 because the final velocity is 0, right? This V3 is 0. So it is U3. U3 is again V1 plus A3 into 30. So A3 is equal to minus V1 by 30, right? So I can write this as minus V1 by 30 into 30 square. So this is equal to V1 into 30 minus 15 times V1, which will be equal to 15 V1. So S3 comes out to be 15 V1. So I got S1, S2, S3, and I also have this equation now. S1 plus S2 plus S3 is 1600 meters. So what we can do is S1 plus S2 plus S3 is equal to 1600. So S1 is 30 V1, S2 is 30 V1, S3 is 15 V1. So 30 times V1 plus 30 times V1 plus 15 times V1 is equal to 1600. Therefore, this will be 75 times V1 is equal to 1600. Therefore, V1 is equal to 21.333 meters per second. And this is also equal to V2, right? And V3 is as it is equal to 0. So what are things were asked in this? First is its acceleration in the first minute. So A1 is asked. A1 is how much? A1 is V1 by 60. So A1 is V1 by 60, which is equal to 21.333 divided by 60, which is equal to 0.3555 meters per second square. Then what is asked? Its retardation in the last 30 seconds, that is A3 is asked. A3 is minus V1 by 30. So A3 is equal to minus V1 by 30, which is equal to minus 21.333 divided by 30, which is minus 0.7111 meters per second square, which is its retardation. And finally, the constant velocity reached by the train, this is nothing but your V1 equals to V2, which we have already found with this 21.333 meters per second. So this completes your problem. Now I was able to only take this one problem in this particular session. We will be solving few more numericals in the next lecture, because I think this lecture will become very big otherwise. So see you in the next lecture. Till then, take care. Thank you.